welcome to episode 59 of PauseCast. It is Thursday, October the 12th, 2017. I'm Jessica Alouette. I use she, her pronouns.
I'm Mark Hanna. I use he, him. Welcome.
I forgot to change a bunch of stuff on the Twitch stream. Oops.
Whoops.
Good start. How have you been, Mark?
Today could have been better, but aside from that, I've been fine.
Because you've had one of your like, big games of the year come out, eh?
I've had one of those ones that I've been looking forward to, yeah. It was...
And we're also celebrating a Prime episode.
Yeah, and you actually pointed it out to me this time, and I had to be like, is it a Prime? Is it a Prime? You're right, 59, Prime number. I should have been ready, damn it.
It goes to show, like, headache days can be bad.
Yeah, no, I guess that's a good point, actually. Maybe I'll blame it on that, yeah.
Blame it on the headache.
It's probably fair, actually. But yeah, so...
Oh god, tomorrow is Friday the 13th.
Well, it's not Friday the 13th you gotta watch out for, it's Thursday the 12th every time. But no, you're right, Shadow of War was released yesterday morning for us.
Yeah.
So it was like 6 a.m. in the morning, I think it actually got released. So I had my laptop downloading it during the day so I could play it when I got home from work, which of course I promptly did. I've been enjoying it a lot so far. It's pretty much what I'd expected, which is good because I was looking forward to it, right?
Right.
It's very much more of the same. Emphasis on the more, like it's the same gist, but a lot more content. More things to do. Everything feels fuller. They've got a few things to give you, like little tasks to do constantly, whereas that was something that there wasn't really in the first one. So, when I jumped back into it this year, it felt really aimless, and I was just running around killing orcs, but got bored pretty quickly going back to it, whereas now it's like, oh, they've got daily challenges to get little bits of reward money. Oh, actually, that's a big thing, which anyone who's been following it's probably known. They've got, like, chests now, like you buy with in-game currency or, real currency, chests in the game. You can completely ignore them, frankly. They can give you followers or equipment. I've got more equipment than I need, and I don't really need it for followers, so I'm glad that it can be completely ignored, although, as my flatmate pointed out to me when I mentioned it to him, what's the point then, kind of?
Well, the point from what I've heard, and this is like the most disappointing aspect of Shadow of War that has been like talked about to death, including within my house, I've been talking about it with Ash quite a bit, is the end game.
Which I'm not at yet, so... Oh, okay.
Yeah, I know. It locks the true ending behind dozens and dozens of hours of grinding.
Oh,
Unless you
weird.
want to pay for loot boxes. Because you need to be at a certain like threshold of power or something like that in order to get the actual ending of the game. And that requires dozens and dozens of hours of grind.
Okay, I'll be interested to see what that's about once I get to it. Because I've been, in typical Mark fashion, not following things super close.
Yeah, that's kind of the reason it's so controversial, is because of that. Like, oh yeah, here, you can either grind forever, or, you've already played the game up to this point, you can throw a little money at us, and you'll get there faster.
I mean, the boxes that I can buy with the in-game currency cost, I think one is $750 and one is $1,500. I've got over 10,000 of that currency from what I've been playing, so you get heaps and heaps. And it looks like you can get some of the stuff that you normally pay real money for through the daily challenges, although I don't know how much you'd get relevant. And obviously I'm not planning on ever spending any money on this game because I've already spent enough freaking buying it, being a full-price AAA game.
Yeah.
But no, I've been enjoying it so far, and as you can tell by the amount of in-game currency I've amassed, kind of completely ignoring the loot boxes as much as I can. But yeah, so when Shadow of Mordor got its DLC with Beastmaster stuff, I was really annoyed playing that because it had, I think, 5 orcs, they were just the same, like they were crafted instead of generated. And
Mm-hmm.
it would have been so much cooler if that stuff was tossed into the mix. And that stuff and a whole bunch of other stuff is tossed into the mix. It's got the same Nemesis system mixing pot. It's just there's a whole lot more ingredients thrown in, which has been really good so far. I've been having fun with it. There's a lot of variety. I'm sure I will get to the point where you see things and you're like, oh, this is from that, that's from that. But I haven't really got there yet. It takes a while to get far enough to unlock the bit about getting followers, but I think that was like that in the first game as well. You have to sort of get through the first act, really, to do that. I'm rambling on about this, not really any direction, but no, it has been fun so far. Sort of I'll tend to go and look at the array of orcs spread out before me and think I'm going to go after him, and then I'll do that. And yeah, no, it's fun. They've added enough to give you constant little goals, which I think is helpful for this.
You got any highlights, stories to tell?
Let me think. I mean, meeting Bruce, obviously. I've been looking forward to that heaps.
You did in fact meet him?
I did in fact meet him.
Because he would have been a crafted orc then.
Oh,
right?
absolutely. Yeah, so because of that, you can't do stuff with him that you can do with the regular ones, which is a little bit of a bummer, because presumably they don't want him to die, so you can't chuck him into combat normally.
Right. I also, sorry for interrupting
go
real
for it.
quick, I also heard that Kumail Nanjiani, who's a comedian, I believe, is also doing voice work for this game.
Okay, do you know what character that is?
No idea.
Okay.
Ash was telling me this story, though, about how when he auditioned, or when he went in and did the VA for the role, they thought they were going to do a bunch of effects to make his voice sound more orc-like and stuff. But no, the finished product is just him. It's just his voice.
I've actually noticed some of the orcs sound more human-like and less orc-like. Not all of them, but sometimes it's like, oh, that's like, was that a person or an
distinctly
orc?
more human.
Yeah,
Huh.
I don't really know what to say about that. It's not like, I don't think it's a particularly bad thing or anything.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's a bad thing either. I just thought that was really interesting.
Yeah. They've gone some places with their Lord of the Rings fan fiction. I appreciate how they've tried to introduce more characters who are women, because holy crap, is that something that Tolkien didn't do well? Although obviously all the orcs are boys. That hasn't changed. But in terms of the actual story, they've got a decent split, which is like, it's good that they seem to have made an effort to have that, because yeah, it's where Lord of the Rings itself really, 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 really lacked.
Yeah. Yeah, Middle Earth was not good at that either. Like the first one, like you had the one.
Oh, Shadow of Mordor.
2 woman.
Who was the second?
2 women.
I remember one. Like, yeah.
Because there was the queen, and then there was
That's
the
right, mother and daughter.
Then there's also the playable woman.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't think they get to a 50-50 split here, but it's like, obviously the playable character, or characters, I guess, they're both men. Almost all of the background characters are still men. But some of them, there are more of the main characters who are women, which is in the right direction, at least.
One assessment I've heard of both of these games as well is like, you're not good in these games.
Yeah, that kind of surprised me how much the guy you're with is kind of a dick, like transparently a dick.
Yeah, it's like he's kind of like, fuck you, I got mine. That was what I remember of like Mordor, was just like this one dude's very self-centered quest. Not really doing it for any greater good or grand purpose, which deviates from the kind of like norm of games and brings it into more like a kind of Breaking Bad situation.
So there's always this kind of duality in this game because you've got the main character Talion and the wraith that's sort of possessing him, and they talk to each other. And
Yeah.
in Shadow of War, there's a lot of Talion going, "We should save these people," and then the wraith's like, "No, screw them." But also they have things we need, so let's go save them.
What is that wraith's name?
I should be able to remember that. It's a Lord of the Rings elven name.
I remember it.
You do?
I remember it. Yeah. Celebrimbor, the ring maker.
It's thank you.
He made the original Ring of Power.
All the rings. Yep.
Oh, did he forge all of them? I was under the impression he just forged the Rings of
So
Power.
Sauron made
Or
the One Ring himself.
Right,
But
which-
he made
okay.
all the other rings before that.
Okay. As you know, and as we've discussed on this show, I think like Tolkien fantasy comes across as not my favorite thing. Like it's kind of the bog standard fantasy now, and it got kind of boring for me.
Yeah, I can totally get that. I try to shy away from a lot of its stuff when I'm doing my D&D game for that kind of reason.
Yeah.
And you know, it's not my absolute favorite setting or anything like that. The sort of system, like I mentioned when we were talking about Shadow of Mordor in the past, it will be really cool in a different setting, and I'd like to see that. Like, it was neat-ish, because it didn't get pulled across fully. There was only the, like, hey, sort of random attributes thing in the Chosen aspect of the XCOM 2 DLC, War of the Chosen recently.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I just keep thinking about, like, this would be cool if, you know, you're generating, like, space pirates or whatever else instead of just always orcs in a different game.
Yeah.
Still hope we'll see that one day.
I understand, like, Heat Signature does some interesting stuff with procedural generation.
Oh yeah, my flatmates picked that up, but I haven't really watched any of it, and I haven't got it myself.
I've only heard good things about that game.
Okay.
So I'm kind of curious. Have you heard of Gunpoint?
Yes, I've got Gunpoint. That's the puzzle
So it's
game,
actually,
right?
Yeah, it's from the same people who made Gunpoint.
Okay. Yeah, I really enjoyed playing Gunpoint, actually. I never finished it. I don't remember why. I don't remember if I had a puzzle I couldn't solve or I just lost momentum with it, but I did enjoy playing it.
Yeah, it's another one of those games that I've like heard is super brilliant, but I think I have it in my library and I just haven't bothered to check it out yet.
Should check it out
Here's
at some
here's
point.
a question I have for you.
Yeah.
So you mentioned the Nemesis system, like you would have wanted to see that in other people's hands, I guess, and like in other games. If you had to pick a studio today who you would want to develop a game using the Nemesis system, who would you hire?
BioWare, I want to see it in a Mass Effect universe.
Really?
Yep.
Huh.
What were you thinking?
I was actually thinking CD Projekt Red.
Oh, The Witcher. That actually, they would do very well with it, wouldn't they?
Here's the thing. I don't want that in The Witcher.
No?
Because CD Projekt Red has another IP which hasn't got a game yet, but it's in development.
Okay.
Cyberpunk 2077. And that is where I would love to see that shit.
You'd want to see it in a cyberpunk setting.
Yeah.
That would be really cool.
That'd be super cool.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, have you gotten the chance to check out that new Blade Runner flick?
Not yet. I actually rewatched the original recently because when I first watched it, it wasn't really what I was expecting. So the pacing wasn't what I was anticipating and stuff. I didn't really think I got it the first time. I enjoyed it much more the second time once I'd sort of been able to prime myself to that. But I haven't had a chance to watch the new one yet.
Maybe we should sort something out for that.
Yeah.
I actually need to watch the original first to like understand that. It's one of those movies that I've heard so much about and I've never really bothered to pick up.
Yeah.
And I think I should probably change that at some point. Austin Walker did a great piece about that on Waypoint as well.
Oh, yeah?
Because the original Blade Runner was one of the films that basically got him to be kind of into being a critic. Because the gist of the article of this piece that he wrote was this it was a very personal piece about like, oh yeah, him and his dad used to like watch films and they had like a list of classics that they defined and like criteria they define them on, and Blade Runner was one of the first movies that they added to that list.
That's interesting.
And yeah, they were trying to figure out the criteria for what makes something a classic. And yeah, I thought that was really fascinating. I will link to that in the show notes. The article is called "I Spent Years Not Caring About a Blade Runner Sequel, and Now I'm a Mess." Yeah. So I think I'd like to see that sort of system in a cyberpunk setting, just because it's so vastly, like, even Mass Effect, both of those things are so vastly different from what Middle Earth kind of is, that it makes it more interesting. You know what? Destiny would be super cool if it had that kind of system in it.
I think it would be harder in a game that is so inherently multiplayer, but the setting, absolutely.
I think you could almost make it like. Oh, you know what? I was just thinking about, like, I was stripping it down too far, and I forgot about, like, the hierarchy and stuff.
How do you mean?
So yeah, I forgot about the hierarchy of how the Nemesis system actually works, because you have, like, generals and you have warlords.
Oh yeah, but I don't think that's necessary.
Characters who can come back is the other part of that.
Mm-hmm. I don't think the hierarchy is a necessary part of that system, though. You could have it just generating more unique or interesting NPCs using those traits and stuff, right, without having to have them in a hierarchy set up like that, I think.
See, I was just stripping it down to its basest element of, like, oh yeah, it's just enemies with, like, generated weaknesses and names and stuff like that. And that's too far to strip it down, because, like, the core of Nemesis and what makes it appealing to a lot of people is the fact that the game theoretically remembers some of the things that you did with it. Yeah,
it's having a shared history with them as well. So part of it is generating, it's got this appearance, these strengths and weaknesses, this name and whatnot, and making them recognizable as that design is kind of an important part of it as well. But then, I encountered someone and I ran away because I was just like, oh, no, I don't really want to stop fight you. And then the next time they showed up, they taunted me for running away last time. And, like... Huh. That sort of stuff was in the first game as well, but it's cool. I had one earlier today actually, which was really neat. So one of the strengths that the enemies can have is blood brothers, where they'll have like a link between two of them. And I had this really tough fight because there were like 3 captains that had just all shown up, and I finally had one down, like almost ready to kill. Turns out one of their abilities is, when you try to kill them the first time, they'll get back up. And then when I was going to kill them the second time, their blood brother like jumped in front of me and blocked me. I was like, shit, now I'm fighting another one. But like, It was cool. And then, actually, what happened next? I think I just killed them both eventually, but it was a tough fight. Yeah. But like, that sort of thing is really neat. I've had one person show up and be like, I'm going to get revenge for what you did to my blood brother. And I was just like, who are you and who was that? Because once they're dead, you can't see the link anymore.
Yeah,
but still.
I think maybe one of the other things that made Nemesis not click for me in the end was, like, I mean, ultimately we've talked about how I felt the Nemesis system was, like, too easy to kind of game, and I didn't end up getting a lot out of it because I just ended up killing so much of the hierarchy that none of it mattered.
Yeah, I remember that happening a lot in Shadow of Mordor, where you'd have, like, 2 orcs because you'd killed all the rest kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That game did not balance its power very well.
There's a much higher power cap on them now. Okay. And they're also spread across a lot more regions. There's way more content in this game, honestly. Like Shadow of Mordor had 2 regions. I think I've got 5 now in Shadow of War, and I don't even know if that's all of them.
Dang.
Yeah, and they've each got their own hierarchy with their own fortress with someone at the top. And in Shadow of Mordor, I think the max level they could get to was 20, and I'm fighting things that are above. Like, I'm seeing things that are above 30, like frequently, and I'm sure that as I get higher, they'll probably get higher too. I don't know if there's a max player level cap or anything. Probably is once you've got all the skills or something. But yeah, the cap on their power seems much higher now. So hopefully I don't run into anyone who's immune to everything but explosions or something. I haven't had any issues with that yet. I know that could happen in Shadow of Mordor.
Yeah, that seems possible and also probably almost certainly bad.
Especially if you've got someone who's also got like a regeneration skill and you run out of things that can explode near them. But unlikely at the very least, if it can happen.
I'm sorry,
No,
I
no,
was
go
just
for it.
having a look at. I was just having a quick look at Steam, and I just noticed Grim Dawn's expansion has just launched.
Oh, that's the what's a better term for me to use than Diablo clone? Because that sounds like an unfair term, I think. But it's that game that you've been playing that's like Torchlight and Diablo and stuff, right?
Loot-driven clicker. It's a loot-driven clicker.
I mean, that makes it sound like an actual
Which is
clicker
also,
game.
it's also, like, reductive as hell. It's an action RPG. In the vein of Diablo. But yes, it is that game.
So they've just had an
And-
expansion, did you say?
Yeah, they've just had an expansion that's launched. It's on a daily deal right now. I just happened to quickly notice that.
I noticed that Dream Daddy has got a deal at the moment, and I thought that's pretty bad timing because they're filling the exact same niche as Shadow of War.
That's true. Both of them are dating simulators.
They are. That's the new thing the big new thing that was introduced in Shadow of War. They've got a lot of new content, and now you can have proper buddies.
Renowned Explorers has got a new expansion as well too.
What has, sorry?
Renowned Explorers.
Oh,
The game that
yeah.
you told me about.
Yeah,
Like,
no, I
ages
remember
ago.
it. They've had a couple of expansions, I think. I don't have them.
Yeah, they had more to explore, and now they have the Emperor's Challenge.
Oh, yeah?
Yep. I'm going to talk about the stuff that I've been playing, but
Please
first, do you know if we have anything in the inbox?
I don't, actually. Are you able to check?
give you a
I
hint.
think you can probably check faster than me.
I'll give you a hint. We don't.
Oh, that's
We
sad.
don't have anything in the inbox, unfortunately. If you want to send things to the inbox, though, you can do so by emailing us, pausecastshow@gmail.com. So I'm going to tell you about what I have been playing.
Yeah, I'm interested.
Last week I talked about how I'd gotten really close to finishing Fire Emblem Awakening. I have good news. It's that I finished that.
You finished it after the show, didn't you? I think I saw a tweet.
I actually did, yeah. I sat down with it after the show, and the end game was actually 3 turns.
Oh, wow.
I rushed it, which I think may actually be kind of the intended way for you to do that, because the objective is just to kill the commander. It's like, okay, they have a ridiculous amount of health, but I can pull up to them really, really quickly and take them out.
Right, and ignore everyone else because it's over when they're gone.
Yeah, exactly. And everybody else is so far away that it stands to reason that the best strategy is then to just rush the boss before you risk losing anyone.
Interesting. How did you find it?
I did lose someone
Oh,
right at the end. They made it all the way to the end, but yeah, I finally finished that game. The ending was good.
nice.
I was curious how it was all going to work out based on how that game opens,
Yeah, because
which you may remember.
it's got that sort of the whole game's a flashback type thing. Whereas it's not exactly that, but it opens with a boss fight against someone who you later meet, and it's you and the male lead.
Yep. Crom.
Yeah. And then you sort of get sent back in time or something. It's kind of ambiguous at the start.
No, it was a dream.
Oh.
It was a premonition of things to come.
Oh.
Is what that chapter is just called Premonition.
True.
Invisible Ties.
I just assumed because you wake up with amnesia that you were sent back in time or something, but that makes
No,
sense.
so chapter 23, I believe, is the actual Invisible Ties.
Right. Yeah.
So that thing does very much happen, and I was curious how that was going to play out. It played out in very interesting ways. Some stuff happens.
No doubt.
Yep. That game was really good though, and having spent 150 hours total playing that game,
Wow.
and that was many restarts and like
Yeah.
trying to find the right balance of difficulty and I guess ease of play, which is just trying to find the right difficulty balance and like get to a place where it felt right and where it didn't feel like I had to grind forever.
Yeah.
It was a lot of trying to find that sweet spot. I didn't really find it in the end. Things could have been better for that, but ultimately, I really enjoyed Awakening. And then this week, I have been playing. I've also been playing Dishonored 2.
Nice. Have you been playing its DLC?
I have not played Death of the Outsider at all yet. No. So I've heard that is very cool. I have friends who have played and completed it at this stage. I've heard it's got some interesting variations on the powers and stuff like that as well.
Cool.
So I'm looking forward to playing it, but I haven't done that yet. I finished the first season of Hitman.
Nice.
I did that on the stream earlier in the week. Finished episode 6, which was Hokkaido.
Oh yeah.
Yep. And gosh, that game is so good. That whole level revolves around disguises because each disguise has a varying level of access to certain parts of this. Like, it's this hyper exclusive hospital, and so each disguise has a chip in it basically, which says you can access these parts of this hospital.
So it's all automated.
It's all automated.
Okay.
So it meant that unless you had like a doctor's disguise, you couldn't get into areas that were marked with like a cross or a like certain level of security because you just didn't have clearance for that. And it would show on your back what symbol you had at the time, so it made it easy to like keep track of, oh yeah, so I have this symbol, so I have this level of access to the facility. That was a really cool level, and there are some interesting ways to kind of complete it, some of which I discovered accidentally.
Yeah.
Which is it was a very fun way to do that level. And so I finished Hitman. That game was good. I continued doing assassination stuff in Dishonored. I'm up to the final 2 assassinations in that game.
Oh,
At
nice.
this point. Yeah.
Nearing the end.
Yeah, very near the end.
How many? So you say the final 2. How many-ish are there in total?
I believe there's a total of 10.
Okay.
I've been kind of dodging around some of the side stuff that's happened. Like, I've kind of seen a lot of the most straightforward ways to do these things.
Right.
I really want to take another run at it and sink my teeth into that world more because it's so fascinating.
I got the impression, again, having not played it, that they had a lot more variation in the environments in Dishonored 2 than they did in Dishonored 1. Or that might just be that I didn't get very far in Dishonored 1, frankly.
No, there definitely is more. There's more of 2 things in Dishonored 2 that are kind of like interesting to me. The first is there definitely is more like straight up variety. It's still a lot of city, but you go from like you go from the docks to this education institute to basically a mining town. So there's a little bit of kind of there is some variation in the environments, but it's maybe not like it's maybe the same level as Dishonored, as in like it's still a lot of city stuff.
Yeah.
One key difference, though, is opulence. The world of Dishonored 2 is quite a bit more opulent than Dishonored 1 was. Dishonored 1 was very, like... It had very limited sequences where it felt like it was opulent in any way, like the Boyle Manor, which is about midway through the game or so.
Okay.
That's a big fancy party in a big fancy mansion.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of just fancy things that exist in the world of Dishonored 2. There is stuff like the Clockwork Mansion, which is a mansion which is controlled by levers and switches, and the walls and floors will fold up as you pull those levers and switches, and the rooms will completely rearrange themselves. There is automated security forces that exist in this world.
I wonder what the record is for the longest time living in the Clockwork Mansion without accidentally crushing yourself. Because that sounds like a death trap.
It's super not, is the thing.
Okay.
There's very limited ways I could see that you could get crushed in that world. It's super hard to do, I'd say.
But, like, you know, if you're living there with someone else and you try to change a room while they're trying to walk through a door, that goes away or something.
The doors don't go away. It's just the, like, contents of the room that you are in will rearrange.
Okay.
So it's not like quite that level. It is just like floors and ceilings will like completely rearrange themselves. You can actually go into the areas in which they rearrange themselves.
Is that full of crushing machines?
Nope.
Nope.
It's totally not.
Okay.
It's just a space between the walls that you can like go into and exist in. This is made even more interesting by one of the like coolest mechanics of that level was that the boss in that level is he can track your every move through this mansion, like through the floors and stuff. Like he'll know exactly where you are at all times, unless you're in the spaces between the walls, and then he can't see you. And there's dialogue that accompanies everything there. Like, as soon as you step into the house, there's like, "Oh, welcome to my house, stranger. I don't know what you're here for, but like, people who come in uninvited don't typically last all that long in here."
This is actually giving me quite a Portal vibe with the whole voice over intercom. Can't see you once you go behind the walls.
It very much is Portal. Except you can watch everything kind of just rearrange itself in front of you. It's a super cool level. I hadn't made that Portal connection, actually.
There's Portal 2 stuff where you see the bits where they rearrange the testing chambers, I think, even as well.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
You don't get a Portal gun in Dishonored 2, though, do you?
No, and you also can't
better.
really you can't control that rearrangement in Portal 2.
True.
That's all predetermined.
Yeah.
Where this is like, oh yeah, I can like rearrange the room to meet my needs in this situation, and then bring it back to this other layout afterwards. And then there's also a later mission which involves traveling between timelines.
I was just thinking about that mission. Because I watched my brother play through that mission. They're both similar in that they've got kind of that double layout of a level. Which is pretty interesting. It must be really hard to do.
Yeah. That also, like, I was talking about that level with a friend, and I mentioned Titanfall 2 in that context as well.
Yeah.
Because that game also has a level where you can, like, shift back and forth between timelines, with the thing that Titanfall 2 does being, like, the level geometry shifts dramatically between the two, and what is destroyed in one section is not in another, and it makes for some interesting platforming challenges, because you'll have to, like, make a jump and then switch timelines as you're in the air, and your velocity is maintained, and you keep going, and then you're in the next timeline. The thing that you're jumping to is now a solid object.
Right.
And you will then, like, kind of zigzag back and forth both between walls and timelines, which is a really, really, it is a really, really wild level.
That sounds cool.
It also involves, like, maintaining battles between two timelines at once.
So do enemies also zip between them?
Yep.
Ah, okay.
Or you zip between them, and there is, like, two sets of enemies, one in each timeline.
Yep.
They're not also able to time travel.
Okay.
It does lead to some really cool, like, radio communications, just like, I can't see him, he's got some sort of advanced cloaking device.
Well, I mean, that's more plausible than time travel, right?
It totally is.
That's pretty cool.
Oh, shit. PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds hit 2 million simultaneous players today.
That sounds like a lot.
Yeah, because the previous Steam record was held like a month and a half ago for years and years by Dota 2.
What was that?
1.3 million.
Wow, this is way higher.
This is way higher. And it's like, it's been continuing to go up. Like, it passed Dota 2's record. I swear it was earlier this month that they passed Dota 2's record for concurrent players for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And now they are just continuing on that road. That's bananas.
Are they adding new content as they go, do you know?
So they have a new map that's in the works. Like, we've continued to have just the one map, and that's kind of just how it is.
Yeah.
But there is a new map in the works, and there's new vehicles and stuff that are coming with that, and this game is still in early access.
Oh, is it?
So, yeah, this is not a finished game.
I didn't realize it was still early access. Wow.
Yeah, no, this is an early access game with 2 million people playing it simultaneously. It was originally going to come out of early access this year.
Has that been delayed?
Yeah, it's going to be delayed until next year. Just because they've definitely gotten... They've been running into issues quite a bit, just trying to get this game stable, and there's no surprise, this game is very successful.
You can imagine that those challenges are only harder when you've got 2 million people playing it at once.
Yeah. That's getting spun off into its, like, this game's maintenance is being spun off into its own, company, essentially. Like, it's no longer going to be developed by Bluehole. It is going to be developed by the PUBG Corporation.
Oh, wow.
Yardnome737 in the chat correctly points out as well, for reference, Bungie was bragging about 1.3 million concurrent players for Destiny 2. So, for this indie studio to hit 2 million players...
Yeah, I mean...
is pretty buck wild.
1.3 million concurrent players for Destiny 2. It's a good brag, but yeah, it does put it in quite a context when this is an indie game. It's really impressive.
Wow. Yeah, it's made like a boatload of money, and like... I can't imagine what it's like to be Brendan Green right now. That is PlayerUnknown. Because he started this as a mod for like Arma 3 and stuff, and it's taken off in such a... Like, this has just kind of exploded.
It's not the first mod for an Arma game that has gotten really popular, is it? I mean... I'm thinking of... I hate saying it because it's using Z instead of Z. DayZ. I always want to call it DayZ. Yeah. That was an Arma 2 mod that got really popular. Not to the extent of this one, but still a mod for the same series.
Yeah, like Arma seems to have a pretty good set of bones on it, and the modding community around it seems to have a good sense of what makes for good game design, and so that's what made DayZ such a success, because they took those like mechanics of Arma and made it into something. I think at times it was a bit more palatable and less complicated than Arma is, but it maintained enough of the jank that it like the jank itself could be a little bit scary.
Yeah, I remember it was. Yeah, I tried playing it a bit, and it was like that added to it. It's like, wow, these things are weird. It's because they're like jumping over the place. They're not meant to.
Yeah. I think an article, either it was an article or someone was talking about this at some point. But it was about Zombie, which is it was a game on the Wii U that launched. And people criticized that around the time of its launch for having really janky controls, but other people have like said, "Oh yeah, no, that actually made it like way more tense and scary because you had to like you would occasionally just fumble your controls at a critical moment." Like you would have your knowledge of like how this game works, and then you would like get into a situation where your back was against the wall and you'd panic and you'd fumble your controls, and it made it even more terrifying.
That's an interesting idea, actually.
Yeah. And that could also be kind of like why stuff like Resident Evil 4 works in the way it does, because that game requires you to manage your inventory in specific ways and stuff like that, and I don't believe it pauses. I could be wrong about that.
Okay.
But like it basically demands that you pre-plan or you'll be caught in a panic.
Right. Yeah.
It's kind of interesting to me to think about. On the other hand, though, I really, really value smooth controls.
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty specific kind of scenario where not perfect controls could add to something. In most cases, it's going to be no, you just want to be able to make the game do what you want it to do, or make the player you're controlling do what you want them to do.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, I've actually thought of another couple of things about Shadow of War I didn't mention earlier that are cool. One is they've done a way better job this time on customizing the HUD. Like in the first game, there was a skill I avoided getting because although it made you able to go faster, it meant that every time you would like vault over an obstacle, spacebar would pop up in the middle of the screen real big.
Right.
But now you can like switch on and off pretty much everything independently, and that is one of the things you can switch off independently. So I'm really glad that they've added that stuff. Actually, the other thing I've noticed is that fast travel within a region is really quick. Like, there's no loading screen. My screen just goes dark for a couple of seconds, and then I've moved across the map, which is really quite nice. Because a lot of time in games, if you fast travel across a region, it does a loading screen. It might take 10 seconds or something, depending on your hardware, of course. But no, this seems really streamlined in its loading times for fast travel specifically, which is quite cool.
You know what I miss?
Yeah?
I like the helicopter extraction stuff that's in Metal Gear Solid 5, which Ash has been playing a lot recently, so it's gotten me thinking about that game again.
Mm-hmm. That's when you put the Fulton balloons and things? No. That's when
you
call in the helicopter.
You call the helicopter from your iDroid.
Yeah, no, that was really cool, actually. Patrick, my brother's been playing it a little bit.
About that system, because I wish you could just, like, call the helicopter and then ride it across to another point.
Yeah.
But instead there was load times in between.
Because you had to, like, go out to the sea and then come back again, essentially, didn't you?
Yeah, you had to, like, be in your helicopter again, and you'd be, like, you'd have pulled the door closed and stuff like that, but you would be moving fairly close to your objectives anyway, so it's like, why can't I just travel over there?
Yeah, I remember thinking the exact same thing when I was playing it. That would have been a good thing for them to have, instead of it takes you to that, like, menu in the helicopter. And then if you want to go somewhere else, you have to go through the menu. The loading screen.
Yeah, no, that's not a great system. That game is so cool though.
I was talking about it recently. Like I said, my brothers just started playing it.
Yeah, I think that would have been because like everybody got it who's got PlayStation Plus.
Yeah, I think that's it. But we were talking about how it's kind of two games. It's the like shooting game where you're sneaking around, taking like clearing out this little facility or whatever, and then it's the Metal Gear Solid story on top of that as like an almost independent thing where things are really bizarre.
Mm-hmm.
And it's sort of like you separate the two. So you've got the bit where you're walking around and you get your helicopters bring you in, and you'll go and you'll shoot the commander or whatever. It's been ages since I played that game. I don't remember what the specific objectives were. And you'll helicopter out again, and then another mission you're like fighting supernatural things, or like the prologue. There's a flying fire whale that eats a helicopter. It's like, what is going on? This is a completely different game.
I hadn't really thought of it as, like, it's arguably even three separate games because of the mother base system, which said like you're building up your staff and you're trying to scan for the best opportunities and you're trying to develop your resources out.
I'd forgotten about that whole abduction thing. Actually, how you abduct all your staff and then somehow they love you for it. I guess.
And then you can punch them in the face on your base, and they'll be like, "Thanks, boss."
We've come full circle. This is Shadow of War again.
Oh no! I mean, it like half is and half isn't. Part of me,
the whole abducting people and then they love you thing is a thing they share there. I think.
Like. I've been having like conflicting thoughts about Shadow of Mordor and Shadow of War and stuff lately, because like part of me is like you have a billion other games to go play and you should play those instead, and then the other part of me is you should play that and try and get the procedural generation to work in a way that doesn't make you actively hate the game.
I'd be interested to see what you think about the sound design of this, because I know that's something that you really, really didn't like in the first one.
Yeah, that really peeved me off in the first one.
But I have no idea how to tell if it's improved or not. That's just my brain doesn't really pick that stuff up and process it in the same way that you do. So I'd be interested to see if you thought it had improved or not, if you ever get a chance to play it or watch it or something.
Yeah, I'd have to, like, Ash is probably going to get it at some point or another.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll probably watch her play it and get a sense for, like, oh, did they improve the sound design and make it sound, like, good?
Yeah.
Did they do that this time?
I haven't noticed any huge differences, but honestly, that I haven't noticed anything doesn't really mean much in this context. But I remember that that's something that you thought fell really flat in the first game.
It definitely did, yeah. Huh. Did you import your Nemesis from Shadow of Mordor?
I don't know you could do that. Is there an option to do it somewhere?
Yeah, it's I just happened to be looking at the Shadow of Mordor Steam page and it's like, oh, Nemesis Forge.
Huh. I think I remember we must have talked about this a while ago, I think, but I'd forgotten completely. It rings a bell though. I didn't. That seems strange because you literally kill your nemesis at the end of Shadow of Mordor. I'll have to look in and see where that option is in game, because I didn't see that. Maybe it's when you start the game? I only remember seeing difficulty options. I've been thinking about turning the difficulty up since it's been ages since anything killed me. And frankly, being killed is one of the cool things about these games, because then you get to see the guy who killed you get stronger.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I wish there was, like, if Middle-earth actually had a difficulty slider, which it does not. When I went back to it fairly recently, I discovered, oh yeah, it doesn't actually have that.
Okay.
If it did, I would have put that on hard so that I died more.
So they've got 3 difficulties now. They've got the story difficulty, which is always good to have. You. I don't know what it's like. I haven't used it. They've got the normal difficulty, which is the one I'm on, and they've got their hard difficulty, which I think they say death is guaranteed. So, good. Hey, if that's what you're looking for, yeah, go for that.
That sounds like it should be the base difficulty.
They've also improved the way counters work, actually, because in the first game, you just upgrade them until, okay, now your counters counters. Sorry. Yeesh. How did I say that? Now your counters stun people or they knock them down. In this game, you get the upgrade where you have to time them perfectly to get those things.
Right. Okay.
Which is better. It means, you have to watch out and be a bit more precise. I'm enjoying combat more for that. Because it means, if I mess up a counter, I might still get them, but I won't knock them down or whatever. And then the skills are a bit different in that now each skill you can modify it in one of several ways that you unlock. So like you can get that perfect counters will instantly kill the weaker enemies, for example. Which seems quite cool to me. I can see there will be cases where you'll want to change your skills because you're hunting a particular orc, which will be quite neat, but I haven't reached the point where I've needed to do that yet. Maybe I will if I try the harder difficulty.
Right, okay. Yeah, I wonder as well, like, I wonder if higher difficulties also unlock kind of like better rewards.
Yeah,
It's something I've been thinking about, having played Torchlight 2 quite a bit recently as well, because I discovered very quickly on higher difficulties, more specifically on veteran and above, it starts throwing out like new systems.
Oh, interesting.
Just a couple new systems, but it starts throwing out new systems in addition to the like increased difficulty.
Yeah.
So I've gotten like a ton of named weapons and stuff like that, and I've also discovered that there's these things just called golden chests in the world.
And they weren't there on the lower difficulties?
They are not, and there will be one specific enemy in the world who will spawn a golden key, which will open the golden chest for that area.
Right. Interesting.
I didn't see that on normal when I was passing through, and it was available in basically every area, and so that was really interesting.
I think if they do change rewards for difficulty, it would have to just be in like the currency or the gems that you can put in your equipment that drop, because all of the equipment, which is another new aspect of the game, so like your sword and your armor and stuff looks different now as you equip different pieces that you get instead of the runes I think they were in the first game. But all the equipment has a level which is based on, I can't remember if it's your level or the orcs level, but something, one of those two. So I don't think that would get any stronger based on difficulty because it's based on that. But you could get a higher level gem or more of the currency when you kill things, for example, at high difficulties. Possibly. I don't know if you do or not.
Righto. You got anything else that you want to hit up, or wrap this thing up?
I'm trying to think if there's anything else I played this week. I actually revisited Monster Hunter briefly. For like 20 minutes. Just because I had a bit of a craving. I went in, I downloaded all of the little downloadable quests, which meant that I could fight some of the monsters that I didn't have access to previously because I hadn't done like a lot of in-game grinding to unlock those quests. So I went and fought one that hasn't been available for a few games, and I was thinking, I'm doing really well, I haven't been hit yet, and then I got killed in one hit from full health. So that was interesting. And then that same thing sort of happened again 2 times in a row, so I failed the mission. But it was fun to revisit for a little bit. I am definitely looking forward to Monster Hunter World coming out next year, but it's still a while off. So I don't know if I might have the occasional little visit, but I think I'm definitely done with Monster Hunter Generations. But it was nice to revisit for a little bit.
All right. I don't have anything else to hit up, so do you want to wrap this up?
Sure thing.
All right. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of PauseCast.
Actually, wait a second.
Oh.
Before we forget, like we forgot last week, what are you looking forward to playing?
God, you're right. I'm looking forward to finishing Dishonored 2 and playing Watch Dogs 2 some more as well.
Nice. You've been on a real good roll for finishing games, eh?
Yeah, I'm going to keep that up.
Nice.
I'm going to finish Dishonored 2. I'm going to finish Watch Dogs 2, and I'm going to roll on to the other endings of Nier Automata.
You're going to come back to it.
Yep.
Cool.
Because I've only finished ending A, and...
There's a heap, right?
There is a heap of them, but there's 5 main endings,
Right.
and each is like a shift in the character that you're playing as. And they just start that you start that next sequence as soon as you reload your game, having completed one of the main endings.
Right.
So after you beat ending A, your file will just convert into a file which is ready for ending B, and so on and so forth. So that'll be my games of the week are going to be Dishonored 2 and Watch Dogs 2. What about you?
I just bought Shadow of War. I'm definitely going to be playing more of it, basically. I did mention that I finished XCOM 2, right?
No, you didn't, actually.
I finished XCOM 2 the other week.
Nice.
So I'm kind of done with that for now. So I think I'm content to stick with Shadow of War for a while. I might start a new XCOM 2 run at some point, but I think I'm going to let it cool off for a bit before I think about that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, more Shadow of War. I'm going to make some more orc buddies.
Very nice. Alright, let's wrap this up for real.
Yep.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of PauseCast. PauseCast is supported by people on Patreon. If you would like to support the show, you can do so by going to bit.ly/pausecast. That'll bring you to our Patreon. Patrons get access to bonus content, such as spoiler casts and stuff when we do those. And you get a thank you every week. Thank you to our current patrons, Allerdrain, Noah Holmes, Rezidoke, Ash Yee, Laminated Moth, and PD for their continuing support of the show.
We really appreciate it.
We really appreciate it. Thank you so much. PauseCast is on iTunes and on Apple Podcasts, more specifically. If you would like to give us a rating or review, helps us out a lot. You can do so by going to bit.ly/pausecast-iTunes or by searching for PauseCast in your podcasts app. We're also now on TuneIn. I have a few things to sort out with that still, but PauseCast will be available through TuneIn very shortly. I also have to look at Spotify and Google Play still. Google Play still saying podcasts are not available in my country, which is New Zealand, which is kind of buck wild. So if you can help me get PauseCast onto Google Play, maybe hit me up on Twitter. You can find me on Twitter at bird.school. Mark, where can people find you online?
I'm on Twitter at HonestUniverse, and I blog as well, though not about video games, at honestuniverse.com.
Excellent. Thank you to Leon for the use of our theme song, Honey Milk Island. You can find Leon... second take. You can find Leon's music online at soundcloud.com/LEYAWN. And that is going to do it for us this week on PauseCast. Thank you so much for listening. We really appreciate it. Me and Mark still have some bonus content coming up this month. Hopefully. We gotta have a talk about that. Stay tuned. See ya.
Bye.